It's very upsetting how regulatory bodies are being used for competitive or political or both actions to prevent companies like Tesla disrupting industries like the car industry. We've discussed this in the past, but one of the big problems in disruption is not just making the products, winning the market, and dealing with competition on a level playing field. It's also that the competition, sooner or later, will start using regulatory bodies and regulatory technology, whatever that may be, to stop competition from happening. A very good example is Tesla and the full self-driving. Full self-driving is the key to the future of Tesla. Elon Musk has said that many times, and the car industry is absolutely aware of that. Good for them. I mean, they're not stupid. Of course, they're going to figure that out sooner or later. And what they're trying to do now is, let's say, NHTSA, but other regulatory bodies, particularly NHTSA, is very aggressively trying to point out Tesla, make people feel bad about the full self-driving. A lot of things are happening. Just yesterday, there was a data release about accidents, and the way it's presented by NHTSA is basically anybody who's driving with a Tesla is more at risk of having an accident with the adaptive driving system the Tesla's using. And of course, that is in many ways wrong, particularly from the perspective of, well, okay, maybe there are more accidents with using the adaptive driving system of Tesla, but how many people are actually using it? How many miles have been driven? And how is it per mile? And what exactly were the situations? Because the system might be that good that you trust it even in tough situations, versus in systems like others like Ford or GM, you don't even trust the system, so you don't get into difficult situations. In other words, because Tesla is at the brink of making a much better system, maybe it's not fully there, but it's already much better. It also might have a little bit more error, but that doesn't mean that the system is less safe. So this is a very clear example of how market and capitalism and business doesn't exactly equate, and that particularly when it comes to market is something that typically only people like that are winning in the market, and those who lose particularly don't like it. This is Not Even Wrong podcast. It's June 15, 2022. This is Krim Delco. For the day, we're up 1.6% as we speak. The market's up 1%. For the year, we are down 47.7%. The market is down 20.7%. We're underperforming by 27%. So this notion of market and capitalism and business, I want to dissect those three notions and make it clear that when we here at Orange Capital Partners talk about markets, when we talk about capitalism and those sort of things, then we're very precise of what we mean. So business is the endeavor of putting capital at work and trying to provide products and services to your customers. Capitalism is the whole system, so it's the global system where we have property rights, we have market prices, and we have capital as a conduct to, as a conduit to actually get stuff done. And markets, and this is the key now, markets is the thing that allows people to voluntarily engage in products and services and investments, and also allows newcomers, for example, to voluntarily engage, and allows newcomers with better products and better services with better value to win in the marketplace. So those are, in general, those three things, and they're not together. So business and market often is actually completely orthogonal. For example, Adam Smith, if you want, sort of the godfather of capitalism, or capitalism as we know it, Adam Smith has said himself the biggest opponent of markets are actually business people, particularly written in back then when he wrote that. Business was basically crony capital, what we call crony capitalism today. So, for example, you had a license to make leather products in your town. You're the guy who makes the leather stuff in your town, and you don't want no competition. In fact, you're going to spend a lot of resources to make sure that competition doesn't get into your town. So often business people are the biggest opponents of markets. Now, we at Orange Capital Partners, we stand for markets. We believe that markets are actually a moral objective. So it's not even a good or a bad thing. It's a moral. This is like don't lie or don't steal. Have markets. Like, markets allow for better things to surface. They make us marginally better off. This is our thesis, and this, of course, warrants its own podcast, just to talk about the pros and cons and all the caveats. But overall, we have to be. Let's just keep it at that. That when we say markets make us better off, it's also relative to what? To non-markets, right? Relative to, let's say, collectivism or some sort of central planning or whatever the non-market is. We are better off with markets. But the fundamental key aspect to our thesis, Orange Capital Partners, is that freedom generates wealth and wealth generates freedom. Those two things are intertwined. And because they're intertwined, we think that wealth is a good thing because it increases the optionality. It basically increases, to use Chiara Marletto's nomenclature, it increases the ability for cans and cons, or for optionality, or to be more basic, more zeros and ones. The more zeros and ones we have, the more things we can do or cannot do, the better we're off, because we have the choice. And markets surface more and more of those things, and freedom is a fundamental concept of markets. So we need freedom, we need markets. That's why, let's say, in our view, countries like China or Russia or India are not prospering. They are actually not developing, or we call them developing countries, but they've been developing for decades. The reason they're not developing is not because they're not capable, they don't have the academics or any of that stuff. It's because they don't have freedom. Simple as that. And a lot of people, they say, let's say, oh, well, China, even Elon Musk says China is going to be the biggest economic power. We disagree, because unless you have freedom, you can't beat any kind of system that has a freedom basis when it comes to developing new products and services. And in other words, the only place that actually has that is the United States. And even within the United States, it's particularly Silicon Valley, and now, fortunately, thanks to Tesla, also other areas that were traditionally not covered by Silicon Valley, such as space or car manufacturing and all those sort of things. So now let's talk a little bit about what it means. How does business actually try to prevent markets from happening? Well, the example that I gave was NHTSA. NHTSA is actually on a rant against Tesla in the name of so-called consumer protection. And here's already what's wrong about this. Why do we need a regulatory body like NHTSA to protect ourselves from buying a product that we want? Okay, so this is already smelling bad. And the reason it's smelling bad is because it's corrupt. I don't know how corrupt it is in a sense, or is Detroit actually paying NHTSA to do this? It might not even be that bad. It could just be that the people who work in those regulatory bodies, they typically come from the car manufacturers, or they hope to get a job there at some point and then be the liaison between the government services and all that stuff. I don't want to go into details how that works. I'm actually right now in Europe, and Europe is much, much worse than the United States. Here, I've spoken to CEOs. They tell me that the only job people in Brussels have is to have lunch with business people and then make something happen, or make a connection happen, or make something not happen, which is often even better for businesses. And it just, in my view, is the single most important explanation for why Europe as an economic bloc is not growing. It's wealthy, but it's not growing. Not growing in terms of wealth. So to summarize, this idea of markets and business and capitalism needs to be parsed out. And it's very important, because when we said Orange Capital Partners that we believe in markets and freedom generates wealth and wealth generates freedom, that doesn't mean we're capitalists necessarily. But capitalism is within sort of, it has freedom in it. It has the markets thing in it. But capitalism can go very wrong, like France. France has capitalism, but it's not the right kind of capitalism. And then business, also when we say we're pro-business, yeah, we are pro-business, but only pro-business within the context of markets. If you tell me that I'm pro-business, but business a la crony capitalism, a la, Detroit trying to use NHTSA, which is a government body, a taxpayer financed body, which is supposed to protect consumers. Well, protect consumers from what? Protect consumers from themselves, or is it to protect the car industry from competition? Which one is it? So these are the kinds of things that I think we need to pay attention to. I just want to clarify this in this particular episode. And also because Tesla is our biggest position, of course, we have to be very, very careful about these things. And when, let's say, this news breaks that, oh, Tesla is less safe, we need to dissect it. We could be wrong. Tesla makes mistakes. Not everything is gold and rosy with Tesla. But this particular thing is definitely an attempt by the incumbents, such as Detroit and the German car manufacturers and the Japanese car manufacturers, to stop Tesla from providing better value through software, because that is a competitive advantage that Tesla has that is very, very difficult to catch up with. And actually, in the words of Elon Musk himself, he said Tesla is going to be a very valuable company if FSD works, and if FSD doesn't work, then it's not going to be very valuable. So if you want to compete with Tesla, if you want to stop the company from prospering, you want to actually try to stop them on the software side. Now you can also try to stop them on the factory side and all that stuff. They tried to make electric cars look bad. They tried to make electric cars look not interesting or not efficient. All of that stuff is gone because we are now in the decarbonizing the world, de-Russianizing the world type of situation where we don't care, because we need to find more optionality, more freedom in terms of transporting ourselves, because we can't rely on energy markets. They're too expensive because of Russia. But now we're attacking the software side of things. That, in my view, and Elon Musk's view, and many, many Tesla shareholders' view, is actually the future of Tesla. The attacks are very cheap and blunt. Oh, Tesla is not safe. Well, I'm a Tesla driver, and quite frankly, I feel a lot more safe with the software than without the software, for many, many reasons. When I'm in fog, I rely on the cameras. It doesn't mean that I'm sleeping when I'm driving. Of course, I am also using my typical senses like any other driver, but this is a much, much better system. It brakes well. I saved the dog's life actually once. Actually, the car saved it. And I don't even have full self-driving. So my point here is that this idea that I need a regulatory body like NHTSA to protect me from consumer products. Now, look, I'm not against regulation per se. I'm not an anarchist in any which way. I think we need regulation, but of course, again, this is another podcast of how to organize regulation, how government should be organized. I grew up in Switzerland, so just a hint, I think it should be done more like Switzerland, where government is a service to the people and not a means to itself, meaning to enrich and help others and crony and all that stuff. So to summarize again, the NHTSA data dump on terms of crashes and the adaptive cruise control system that supposedly is very unsafe with Tesla and much safer with others, is a very blunt and cheap attack on Tesla. It is either directly or indirectly supposed to help the incumbents to prevent Tesla from running away with a much better product and much better software. Thank you.